Welcome back. You're still watching Network Africa on Channels Television. Now, it's been almost a week since the results for the Burundi presidential elections were announced. And you might be wondering why you haven't been hearing a lot of news from the East African country. The reason is Burundi's privately owned radio stations are still silent, although President Pierre Nkurunziza succeeded in forcing the country to hold an election, giving him a third term. Reporters Without Borders are calling for the rapid and unconditional reopening of the media and guarantees for the safe return of all journalists who fled abroad. The election was held amid a news blackout imposed by the president. Those who voted did so amid news coverage that was tagged biased and also partial because the privately owned broadcast media were not allowed to resume operating. But we'll have more for you after this. Still to come on Network Africa. It's very unfortunate, but the frustration continues for the journalists and their supporters as the retrial date has been postponed again and no new date has been given. Welcome back. Now, just before the break, we were telling you about what's happening in Burundi. Now, it's been almost a week since the results were announced to President Nkurunziza being declared the winner of the just concluded elections. And there's also been a crackdown on the privately owned media stations in the East African country. Reporters Without Borders are calling for the rapid and unconditional reopening of the media and also for the guarantees for the safe return of all journalists who fled abroad during the crisis. Well, we're joined from the Burundian capital of Bujumbura by Mr. Jean-Regis Nduimana. He's a university lecturer and media consultant. Mr. Nduimana, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, and hello.
Hello, and we're glad that you seem well. Tell us what's going on. It's almost been a week since President Nkurunziza was declared winner.
He was declared the winner, and so he goes on. He's still going on with his move, and we have a new parliament now in its bureau, and Gwasa Agato, the main opposition figure, is in the parliament as the first vice president, which is for some people a smart move, which is for her a serious critic, on him going into the parliament. So that's the really what is happening here. And in the meantime, there's those guys in the opposition who are in Addis Ababa right now discussing to come up with a new political platform.
Now, Mr. Nduimana, what's happening with the press, especially the privately owned radio stations?
There's no independent press here. Now we have only state-operated media, the Radio Télévision Nationale du Burundi. And also we have only one independent newspaper, but we don't have a private radio. So people here rely only on WhatsApp. WhatsApp has become the main source of information, rumors, critics, and everything.
So what exactly is the state-owned media? What are they reporting?
Some of journalists has fled the country in the neighborhood country in Rwanda. So they came up with a web radio called inzamba.org. It is on radio. So they have a newscast, and after the newscast is aired, they send that on phones via WhatsApp. So every night, people have in their phones the whole newscast by those journalists in Rwanda. Otherwise, you can rely only the news from the state media.
And is anything being said about when the privately owned radio stations and privately owned media in the country will be allowed to resume their work?
Sorry, come again?
I'm asking if anything is being said about when privately owned stations will be allowed to resume.
According to the spokesperson of the president, he said that there's some investigation going on about what happened the day radio station were shut down. So the investigation is still going on. Nobody knows what is going on really bad. Some critics say that the government doesn't have any will to open up those radio because, now Burundi is facing kind of authoritarian regime. And what goes with the authoritarian regime, media is no longer independent, it is no longer freedom of expression. So as long as there is still such a conflict between opposition and the government, media are not allowed until those investigation come up with something that may be agreed between media managers and government.
Well, finally, Mr. Nduiman, I do have to say at this point, does this not taint the credibility of the elections? Because what state media reported was that 40 to 80% of the electorate participated in the polls, while election observers who were present are saying that was not the case.
Yeah, this affects so much the credibility of the elections. That actually, some in the international media are the only ones saying that elections happened, because anyone who knows here that it was not such elections. How can you say election? There is no media to report to observe. So the whole process of election has been taxed not to be credible.
Well, Mr. Nduimana, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate your inputs. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, Mr. Jean Regis reporting from the Burundian capital, Bujumbura. Well, we're still looking at press freedom, and today is July the 30th, the date which was fixed by a Cairo court to retry the Al Jazeera journalists. That's the trio of Peter Gresta, Bahir Mohammed, and Mohammed Fahmy. Sadly, but without surprise, the session was adjourned without any reason given and no new date fixed.
Heard lots of news that the verdict is today, and now delaying it without informing